Hey everybody, welcome to CAF Warbird Tube, the show where we talk about World War II, aviation, history, and so much more. Warbird Tube is produced by the Commemorative Air Force, the world's largest flying museum. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and honor through flight and living history experiences. The CAF began the Warbird movement more than 65 years ago, and thanks to the support of individuals like you, we continue to grow strong. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and now our host, Steve Buss. Thanks for watching and keep 'em flying.
Well, good evening, aviation enthusiasts, and welcome to CAF Warbird Tube. Tonight, episode number 167, and we get an update on one of CAF's largest restoration projects and one that's been in the works for a number of years. And if you've been following the exploits of the Lake Superior Squadron, you know we're going to talk about their PBY Catalina. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're a loyal Warbird Tube fan, we're thrilled to have you with us tonight as you're watching. If you enjoy what you see, don't forget to spread the word on your social media platforms. We certainly do appreciate it if you like and share any of our content. Warbird Tube is made possible by the Commemorative Air Force. To find out more about CAF, our events, our aircraft, local units, or how you can join the fun, visit our website, commemorativeairforce.org. Now, as you're watching tonight, you might have some questions. If you do, just type those in the chat box, and we will either try to answer them during the presentation, or we'll save time at the end and get them answered before we sign off. But right now, joining me from Superior, Wisconsin, which is just about as far north as you can get before you end up in Canada, Brian Janssen and a number of your workers, their restoration team with the PBY. So go ahead and Brian, we'll start with you. Just introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you.
Sounds good. Hi, I'm Brian Janssen. I'm the executive officer of the Lake Superior Squadron.
I'm Eben Sayward. I'm a maintenance officer.
My name is Matthew Brown. I am one of the mechanics here.
My name is Kyle Allen, and I am the education officer.
I'm Daniel Hayes, and I'm the motor pool officer.
Very nice. Well, it's you can see that there's some sunshine up there in Superior. We were joking earlier whether the snow was gone or not. You said it's been gone for about a month. But this is, as I said, one of the longest restoration projects, one of the largest, but it's one that people are very interested in. And we appreciate you guys taking time to kind of check in with us and let us know how things are going. One of the big challenges you have when we joke about the weather is that it does get a little cool up there, and to keep a big hangar or a hangar big enough for a PBY heated during the winter months is a challenge. So you've gone ahead and almost built yourself a hangar within a hangar to make sure that you're still able to work on the airplane throughout the winter months.
Yeah, we have a tent literally around the main part of the hall right now where we're working it. We can heat it up to, by accident, we can easily get it past 70 degrees, but we normally have around 60.
Comfortable working conditions.
Comfortable, yes.
Yeah, we had a few times where we're sweating quite a bit in the middle of the winter inside the tent, and it would be a little bit too much heat.
Let's back up the clock a little bit and kind of start from the beginning of how, first of all, how the Lake Superior Squadron came into existence, but also how this PBY and the second PBY kind of come together in this project.
Sure. So Lake Superior Squadron was formed as a detachment from the Minnesota Wing back in around 1998, 1999, around that time frame. And that was in answer to when the damage happened on 79 Yankee. The CAF needed a place to store that PBY as well as the replacement PBY N324FA. They found a hangar up in Duluth that was big enough to fit both planes, and they formed a small detachment to kind of help maintain the hangar and as well as assist with the planes. So that worked for a couple years. Then unfortunately, N324FA was grounded due to some corrosion issues. The CAF was kind of wondering what to do for a PBY. We had two PBYs, and neither one was flyable at this point in time. So after a few years, in around 2009, the Lake Superior Squadron became a separate unit in the CAF. And with that, some of the members got together and decided to research what we could do with the two basically complete but damaged PBYs. And they came up with the idea that the fuselage from 79 Yankee was in pretty good shape, and the wing from 324 FA was in pretty good shape. And they would want to meet those two things together and get one complete PBY out of two. So that's kind of when the genesis of this restoration started. A couple things have happened since then. We did have to move in 2018 from Duluth to Superior. Once that happened, we disassembled the plane, and Eben, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we just assembled the plane down to its major big pieces. So like the hull, the fuselage was one big piece. We got a yacht mover to move down. And then the wing was taken apart. If you look closely on the wing, you'll see a seam, but it's down in three pieces, the midsection, the wings, the outer part of the wings. And yeah, it took, I think it was like about 3 to 5, 6 months for disassembly and move. And where the process of disassembly also opened up more things we found that we need to look at and possibly fix. So it kind of was a blessing in disguise at the same time. So we are now in the process of, actually, we're in the process now of actually fixing up 79 Yankees fuselage because it's better shape. Like we're in the process of blasting it and getting it painted and inspecting and all that stuff required of that. But yeah, it took a decent crew nonstop pretty much for 5 months, tearing them down and get it for a move.
Not the kind of job that you can call 2 men in a truck and say, send 2 men in a truck. You probably had some specialized equipment that you needed to use to move.
Yeah, definitely. They had semi trucks and both actually used yacht trailers to haul both fuselages down.
And literally the yacht mover where like the arms go underneath the hull and it lifts it up. Yeah, we had for both hulls had to be done that way.
And then semi loads, I believe, of parts that came over. Yeah. In addition, we had a number of members with large trailers too, that we'd load up a half dozen trailers, and then we drive them down, and then we'd unload them. So a lot of people were involved in the move.
There were like 2 teams because one guy half could work in the evening, half could work in the morning. So the guy in the morning would load up the trailers, and the guy in the evening would unload the trailers and repeat the process over again.
Wow.
So we had quite a lot of space and quite a lot of museum artifacts and plane parts we'd collected over the 18 or so years we were in Duluth.
Yeah, one thing to add to that too, this hangar down here is actually smaller than our hangar that was up in Duluth. So when we got it down here, our hangar was full.
Yeah, it's about the time I had started, and yeah, you couldn't see the front door, the front of the hangar from the back of the hangar, just because of all the stuff we had in there.
Well, you do bring up a good point. Not only do you have the 2 airplanes, but you also have a museum that goes with the squadron as well.
Correct. We actually have, currently we have kind of called 2 museums. One at the hangar that's right behind us right here, a smaller area where we have a number of displays of various different artifacts from the Army, Air Force, Navy from World War II. A lot of uniforms, helmets, guns, other types of displays. And then we do have a bigger area in the Bond Veterans Center over in Superior as well that has a lot of memorabilia and other artifacts. So it's kind of 2 different areas, and we have members that are over at the museum 2-3 days a week, helping with display the museum to visitors there.
Yeah, graciously the Bong Museum gave us a corner of their museum to display our artifacts, so it's kind of nice.
Very nice. Yeah, that really helped with the move as well, because there was more stuff that we can fit into our hangar here.
Yeah, so. I want people to see it, so it was a blessing.
Well, and that brings up a good point. Richard Bong was from Superior, Wisconsin. That was his hometown, and so there is a World War II history there. But also the original hangar that you had in Duluth had a military background as well.
That is correct. Yeah, it was the original 148th hangar, it was an old wooden arch hangar, and I can't remember exact year it was built, but it's big. Like it could easily fit the PBY in there. But yeah, you want to add anything more into that?
Nope.
Okay, yeah. There's not much. I actually joined after the move, so I don't know as much of that hangar. So yeah, that's how to double check.
Yes. And you were mentioning before we came out together, the hangar you're in now is actually predates World War II as well. It's from the 1930s.
Yeah. Yeah, it predates it. It definitely looks like out in the hangar because it has nice tongue groove and wooden rafters with hot rivets for the main hangar door area. It's a pretty cool hangar.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, let's get into a little bit of what we're here for tonight, and that's to actually talk about the airplanes themselves. So first off, explain a little bit about we've got 2 separate kind of area, this landing gear being one, and then this larger fuselage area that are projects that are in progress right now.
Yeah, so this picture right here, if you see, is actually on the co-pilot side, just after the co-pilot actually. It's where the sliding window will go back in the trough, the hole. But yeah, this area here, we had to replace a couple of the tracks and the skin due to different damage and corrosion. You see there, the window's still in there. And yeah, it was a rather big process of getting it out, match drilled, and back in. And yeah, it's a I can understatement how big that project was.
Do you have original drawings of the airplane, or do you rely on a service like Air Corps?
We have Air Corps and ICE. They have stuff. We do have original manuals and stuff that does help. Some of the stuff, of course, is like lost and like different things we gotta find in Air Corps or find other documents that are good references to fix the problem. But that's the inside of the window that's just after the cabin, or actually, yeah, just after the cockpit. I mean, so there's a radio cabin and the cockpit, and there's that kind of opening. Those are the windows we're looking at right now.
Yep.
That's temped in. That was all of us just putting it together to make sure it fits. And we still had more stuff to do. It was kind of a preemptive fit before we actually said it was good.
So you must have a pretty extensive machine shop and there, and all the specialty tools that you need to go build an airplane.
Yeah, we have a decent shop in the back here. We have a roller, we have a shear, we have a, I'm trying to think of the name of the tool. But yeah, we have a few tools that definitely help us. We have, we also have a decent amount of aluminum too. So all this stuff we need to fix, we pretty much have all the stuff we need in stock here to do any more of the skin repairs and stuff.
How much of the skin are needed to be replaced? In the cockpit area that we're talking about right now.
In the cockpit area, I would say the roof of the radio cabin, which is just after the cockpit, I would say all the roof was. Okay. So in the general sense of that whole area, it's probably about 60–70%. So if you see the green there on the roof there, if it had another picture going down, I don't know if we do, but there's actually that going all the way down to the side door you get in is also replaced. So that one.
That's the wheel well.
That's the most recent photo. That was just last weekend. We had a couple people. We could talk about the landing gear in a bit.
But that kind of covers it. You can kind of see the green by the wheel well. That was one panel removed. But if you look on the right side of those two guys, that whole area there going up to the top we're just looking at, that's all been replaced. We graciously had a guy that did 40+ years of sheet metal work that was able to knock that out a couple years back. Yeah. Kind of miss him. He got a stroke, but he did wonders under that plane.
Sure.
Richard Cahoon is Rich Cahoon is what we refer him.
Yep.
And yeah, so this is to get my bearings here for a second. This is actually looking to the pilot side out, but yeah, this is in process of finding the holes. We're getting the BHAF in to put the skin down, and we're getting the clecos in to pull them together. It's just before we're shooting rivets. So that whole piece that's around the emergency exit hole, that square you see Kyle through there is yeah, that's we're just trying to get everything down and lined up, because of course they're not butted together on top of each other. So we would make sure to get one sheet down over another one, and we don't get one before the other. So
far so good. It's all going back together in one.
Oh yeah.
It's all a puzzle that we take apart and put together about a half dozen times before we put anything in place permanently. We want to make sure it all fits properly and the picture is going to be correct.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and that is something that happens in any restoration project, is that you think you've got it right, you put it together and it's not quite right, and then you make sure it's right before you finally put it all the way in.
Yep.
One of the cool things is we do have the Black Cat out there, and I think in a couple of spots we did find one of the railings we were struggling with a little bit, and that was a great reference for us. We went out to the Black Cat, took a look at that railing, and just like that, said, "Oh, what's this piece right here?"
The cockpit area has those weird apparatus of bars and stringers and stuff, and how they stacked up. Yeah, we actually literally couldn't figure out in the drawings. Like, oh yeah, we have no one outside, so we just went out, looked at the other one, and figured out how to put it together. It's kind of nice for having a backup, but yeah, it's a blessing too. Another project too, eventually.
Oh yeah. So are we looking?
We're looking actually forward, yeah.
Forward?
So
Okay.
on the 79 Yankee, the nose is actually damaged from when it had to flip in the windstorm. So there's actually nothing up there. That's why you can kind of just see straight out. But
Okay.
this is looking straight forward right now. That square that Kyle was through in the last picture is actually that square in the top left. Still, we're doing the same thing here. We're trying to get the we're trying to get the skin down on it to get ready to shoot it. But yep, and I think we're actually shooting it there. Yeah, we're bucking right now. Yeah.
Yep. How long did it take to actually get this section redone? I mean, it's not, certainly wasn't something that you did in a weekend.
No, it was actually a couple of weekends. I think it was, I had to guess, remember, it was like 4 or 5.
It was like 4 or 5. I think.
Yeah, so the setup and stuff, so all the parts were previously manufactured.
Yeah, we took all the sheets, matched them from the old ones and stuff, but the actual process of taking the sheets and attaching to the plane was about 5 weeks.
Yeah,
5 weekends. So.
We had a couple fittings before that in October, November, and then this work was back in December for when we actually did the final riveting. 2 weekends in December. Was one weekend, one half was one weekend, the other half was the other weekend, basically. Yeah. So 2 days, both weekends, a big cruise.
A big crew, yeah.
It was both days.
Yeah.
So.
We had at least like 6, 7 of us, plus a few more people here and there.
Yeah.
Okay. Mark just chimed in. He's got a question. He said, sorry, this may already have been answered, which actually we haven't, Mark, so it's a good point to bring it up. He was wondering what's happened to the original hangar in Duluth.
You want to cover that?
I would cover that too, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, back in, I think it was 2017, the original hangar did get structure damage in a windstorm. Yeah. And was basically condemned, and that's the reason we had to move. We had I think they gave us about 11 months from the time they said go for us to find a new home to get, and that last half a year of people working super hard to get everything moved. So unfortunately, that's the sad part about it. And just about 2 summers ago, I believe it was finally demolished. So right now it's actually just it's a part of the ramp at the Duluth airport.
Cirrus Aircraft uses it as a parking lot right now.
Oh, okay.
for aircraft.
For aircraft, not for cars.
Right. And then another, Henry was asking, this may be out of scope, but we'll give it a try anyway. During World War II, were there any U.S. Marine Corps PBY patrol squadrons, or were they just Navy?
Not that I'm aware of. So PBYs generally were either Navy specific or Army Air Corps specific under the name OA-10 for the Air Corps. Mm-hmm. I'm not aware of any Marine groups offhand, but that's always something we can always research and delve into sometime in the future.
Although the PBY was used by other countries too. They were sent to Russia. They were used by Australia and some other countries as well. So.
Yep, Commonwealth, big users.
Definitely. There was a handful in the Coast Guard, is my understanding as well. Various different times. And then they're manufactured in the U.S. A couple spots in the U.S. or actually 3 spots, if I remember correctly.
2 or 3 spots in the United States, 1 spot in Canada, and I believe 1 spot in the UK for sure.
And then the Russians had I don't know.
It was
I don't think
lease.
everybody really knows how many they actually made, but they're doing some lease models as well.
Okay. Definitely a wintertime activity.
Yeah, but that was December. Yes, this is December. So, and it actually probably was heated. But sometimes it's colder, sometimes it's warmer.
Yeah, the heat wasn't perfect. It would be nice 60, 70, and then the heater was shut off, and then we'll turn back on until it's down in 40s, 50s. So it's jacket, no jacket, and it's some people just wore their jacket the whole time.
Yeah.
Yep. That was probably first thing in the morning.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah. It takes a little bit to heat up. Yeah, so this is more of that window compartment that's just after the cabin. Kyle there is actually in the cockpit.
Okay.
Standing up through the opening, and then we were shooting the rivets, I think, starting to get those pieces in.
Yep, it looks like that. And we're putting Clecos in one of the two.
Well, it could have been the air-driven Cleco.
Yeah, and we had a tool for assisting the Clecos. If you put a ton of Clecos in, it's constantly using a pliers to get a little firing. We had actually an air gun that actually would do it for us, and we just had to stick it in. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's more of just getting the skin down. That's actually just in front of the crown, so you can see the superstructure where the wing would attach there. Pete and George. George is in purple and Pete's on the left there. They are, yeah, I'm pretty sure we're still putting clecos in there, but
they're drilling right there.
Oh, the drilling, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because yeah, the crown actually, I can't remember how many layers, but I think it's like 3 layers they have to line up, and the hole's not perfectly aligned, so some of them we had to kind of chase the holes before we could actually get it down, because clecos had to get the sheets together.
Okay. How many clecos do you guys have?
Too many.
Too many.
Never.
Yes, probably 5
Or not enough.
We have a full toolbox just basically of clecos, so it's a lot. That's back inside. We're looking actually somewhat aft to the cab, after the radio cabin towards the landing gear kind of apparatus wall there. Trying to think what I'm even doing in the picture. Probably, yeah, I'm bucking. I'm on the bar. But yeah, that's looking aft. We're still in the process of getting the skin on that picture. You can kind of see the walls in there, the more taken placement of the skin, and the we're still going to explore the hull. Right in bottom, it looks good, so we're not anticipating to go into it, but we actually in process of still actually blasting the paint off the inside to confirm that.
Okay.
This we didn't have any. And we've had a few where the paint looked like corrosion, and as soon as we got the paint off, I think it was perfectly fine. So.
Well, that's good.
And there you can see the nose a little better.
Right.
The cockpit's looking forward, but the right in front, that kind of skeleton part, that's actually the where the instruments would be, and in front of that would be the nose turret, and currently doesn't exist on the plane. We have all the parts for it, okay. But that's another project we're hoping to take forward. Many other projects on that plane, but that's one of the ones we have to reconstruct. But yeah, that doesn't have all the bars. But on this picture, if you imagine there's be 2 bars going forward, and the window will kind of come in on the angle. And then there's another support down the center where the controls are, all that's out for refurb, I think it was. I'm trying to remember. Some of it I think it was replaced, if I remember right.
I think the nose piece on this was refurbished when it was serving some of its other lives.
Yeah.
So a goal would be to set it back to more of what it was coming off the assembly line, yeah. With the turret in place. And like Eben said, we have parts, but it's just a matter of puzzling it all together and probably fabricating some other pieces, because there were some pieces cut to put on the false nose.
Yeah, the other thing too is that actually the corner of that nose got damaged when the flip, when it happened, and the wind flip happened on it. The front corner took a brunt hit and it was removed. So some of that has to be remanufactured in a sense of figuring out, okay, what's the shape going in. Luckily, we have enough pieces to do it. It's just doing it. Puzzle. It's a puzzle.
Well, it's all one piece at a time, right? I mean,
yeah.
Literally, you've just got to move from one section to the next, to the next, to the next.
Yep.
And how do you determine what you're going to do next?
Well, we tried at once, trying to do a lot of projects at once, and like it helped to a point, but we found it's actually better that we're just aiming at the big ones right now. So okay. We're focusing on structure stuff. So we're looking at skins, we're looking at landing gear, brackets, we're getting the blasting done inside to confirm any more corrosion. As soon as we get to that point, we're going to then start the process of putting things back into the plane and hopefully get more of it back together. Like pretty much what you're looking at is like everything's out of there. It's just the skin structures there. Cables are out, pulleys are out, pass-throughs are out. Yeah, that's pretty much bare bones right now. But yeah, the original goal, as Kyle said, is bring it back to what it left the factory at. We're going to have the blisters operating as slide ups with 50 cal mounts. Hopefully, the nose turret be put in. We're thinking of even trying to go as far as getting armaments out on the wing. We're still trying to explore that option because the wing actually has attachment points and stuff. We just have to figure out how we're going to do it. But that's a way down the project. But yeah, we want to make it look as close as possible as it was when it came off the factory. Yeah, that's our goal. And that's back bucking on the looking aft again. You can actually see more of the base of the hull up the tail down the hole in the center there. But this is right near the crown. Either a drilling or bucking. It's hard to tell in the picture. But yeah, there's more getting the skin on. Actually, this one kind of shows we have more of the skin on and not much holes left, which is good.
And there's someone trying to hand off the bucking bar, right?
I'm done bucking for the day.
The weird thing we actually found is like we had various different bucking bars, and we had a couple that were borrowed from a guy, Rich, and he had these custom bars he'd used before that he made, and they were the best bars that he'd used on it multiple times. So we found some interesting ways and improved ways of treating our bucking rivets. So
yeah,
there's definitely some unique angles on the inside of there too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you have like Z channel. You have to get behind it. You have to, yeah. It's not like straight on. You're kind of doing some weird stuff to get things bucked. So,
do you know much about the history of this particular airframe itself?
Yeah, we have a pretty good document that covers all the different places it resided or was owned by. This particular one was 79 Yankee, that is, was delivered in September 45 to the U.S. Navy. It was actually one of the few, well, I think most of the 6As many of them anyways, were built out of New Orleans. So it was delivered to the U.S. Navy in September 45, and then served, was in storage off and on, but served in the U.S. Navy Reserves up until 1956. It is believed to be the last PBY in service with the U.S. Navy at that point in time. So after that, it did get sold off to a few different places, resided in places like France and Canada, and I think even Norway for a brief period of time, and went all around. Eventually, in the fire bomber role in Canada for a number of years. And then in 1994 is when the CAF obtained 79 Yankee. So,
yeah. And the rest is history.
The rest is history. Yeah.
Do you know? Do you have a similar kind of timeline on the Black Cat?
Yeah, it's actually 5 serial numbers lower than 79 Yankee. So 6406. I don't have it off the top of my head, so sorry. Usually I can rattle it off, but it's drawing a blank right now. But it's 5 serial numbers apart from 79 Yankee. So it was delivered in August of 45. Very similar path. It served with the U.S. Navy for a while, and it was decommissioned in 56 with 79 Yankee. Both were at NS at Atlanta at that point in time. So kind of interesting. They actually, when you look at some of the years, it was kind of interesting. They kind of paralleled each other a little bit. They were on the assembly floor together. They were in, the Navy roughly the same time, NAS the same time. I think at one point one of the firefighting companies up in Canada owned both of them, those types of things. Then finally they came to the CAF.
Awesome.
Yeah, one thing to add too is that one wasn't originally black. We actually painted it black to honor the Black Cats.
Okay.
It was, I think, red we have, and I think there was one other color it was prior, and I can't think of it right now. But
yeah, I do have a few notes on there that talk about the color schemes, but unfortunately I don't have the top of my head.
It's okay.
So, Dan, you want to cover this part?
Yeah, it's the fun part.
This is actually a photo of me media blasting the paint up the outside of the hull. When we first tried our hand at blasting the paint off, we used like an equivalent to baking soda, and it works pretty good for taking the paint off, but it's even better at making a dust cloud that you can't see anything in. We tried all different kinds of ventilation, but you would start blasting it, and about 10 seconds later, you could probably see about 2 inches in front of your face. So we ended up switching over to walnut shell, which is what I'm using in that picture.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I believe, 3 weekends. We got probably 3/4 of the outside of the plane paint free. And as soon as we finish the outside, we're going to move to blasting all the paint off on the inside.
Okay.
One of the other benefits of using the walnut shell is that we found it's reusable. So we can sweep it up, we can put it through some screens, and we can use it again, which we couldn't do with the baking soda. So
yeah, we get roughly 3 uses. It's by the 3rd use, pretty much gets close to making a cloud like the baking soda stuff. It's really worn down at that point. But yeah, screening it out for metal and stuff, it's so we can reuse that. It just also acts like it's a little finer grain.
Yeah, the biggest benefit to this whole project is we ended up figuring out better ventilation.
Yeah.
So the way that we used to do is we'd have a box fan inside the plane because that's where I was initially doing the soda blasting. And we were destroying fans and making a big mess. I think that's actually our safety officer, Steve Hamlin, that photo.
I think so.
I think he's doing some cleanup work.
Yeah.
But you could tell he's smiling behind the mask, and Steve is always smiling.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we switched up the air now. We actually make a tower. We had a furnace blower that we had to tower our filters, and it keeps the dust level down and also allows fresh air to come in and purge out the it's somewhat dirty air, but it's going through the filter before it's shooting outside the tent. And that tent's the same tent we heat during the winter, so it's also acting as a container for the dust. Still makes slight dust in the hangar, so we have to figure when we want to blast, so we don't have to clean the whole hangar all over again.
Is there any abatement issues that you need to be aware of when you're taking the paint off? I mean, as far as cleaning up the paint chips and things?
Like the paint chips like coming off. No, it's not really that much. Some of the stuff we were looking at, like inspecting prior to the actual blasting, we found like areas that we thought was corrosion where it ended up being either a paint peeling up or bubbling a little bit. And after we hit the blasting, it was just paint. It was actually nothing to do with the aluminum skin underneath it.
Okay.
But no, it wasn't too much that we found per se in the blasting. We do have to, of course, the technique. If you're not knowing how to do it, you could damage the skin because it does have that much force. We're using a full-on industrial compressor, and yeah, it's blasting a decent amount of media at the skin. If you get too close, you're going to take off the protective coating on the alkyd and or whatever else is chemically protected by. So
yeah, there's probably 20 or 30 different types of media that you can use to blast different types of metals and plastics. And fortunately, our supplier gave us a nice chart that tells us exactly what media to use for what application. And it's basically you're using something that's softer than the metal that you're trying to take the paint off of. Walnut shell is quite a bit softer than aluminum.
Mark was wondering, he just dropped in a comment. He said, back in the old days, I stripped a PBY with paint stripper. Pretty nasty. Is that why you don't use paint stripper? It's probably a lot faster.
You can. It's just the problem is it makes a big mess.
Yeah.
Like you would have to find a whole area, douse the thing completely with paint stripper, let it sit and flake off. But it makes the floor actually really slimy, is probably easy to wear too. And then you have to go through and maybe apply it again if you missed a spot or it didn't come off in the first try. We found, actually speaking of that, was it like 7 layers of paint on this one?
Yeah.
In some areas. So yeah, it would have worked, but yeah, it's just the stripping part is a messy process, and the blasting allows to kind of get in nook and crannies and come out rather clean, as you can see in that picture.
It depends on the parts too. I know there were some smaller, some of the doors and the hatches and some of the smaller pieces that we did use the paint stripper on rather than use the media blasting.
True,
Yeah, if you have to do a lot quickly, you're better off media blasting, and if you have small parts, like Kyle said, it's best just to use paint stripper. But we had tried to use paint stripper on the wheel wells, and it didn't work out as good as we hoped we would. It's not that easy to apply it on an overhead surface without getting it on you.
So, for instance, this is the front wheel well at the very front of our PBY, and I was tasked with actually applying paint stripper to it as an experiment. Because we were still trying. We were trying the baking soda at the time. We were trying paint stripper because we donated a large amount of it, and trying to put paint stripper vertically above your head while you're looking at it is very unnerving, I guess is the best way to put it, and trying to get enough of it applied where it actually worked properly, because like they've said, there's different layers of paint, different types of paint being used, and we found that even depending on what the paint that was specifically used on that part, the paint stripper wouldn't do almost anything, depending. So moving over to walnut shells made these tasks so much easier.
It's also really good for getting into nooks and crannies. And the nose wheel well is a good example of tons of nooks and crannies.
Yeah, if you can figure right there, you can, in the forward part of the picture is actually the the bearing sleeve where the nose gear actually swing down, and the divot where you see the small like window in the corner is actually where the wheel will go up. And then the torque tube, as you can see at the top and bottom, are actually part of the door assembly. But so try to get, so the front on this is actually to the left. So it'll be opposite of where the wheel is. That's looking at the co-pilot side of the right of the nose. You can see that we have the PBY on a wooden saddle, and that you can see the nose piece now that's in front of the cockpit. It's not really there because we're in process of trying to redo it. We actually took there was skin on those two front pieces. One was actually ripped off when it flipped and had some damage. And we're doing some research. We found that a few of the planes actually had anchor lockers in the front left. So we're still trying to review and research what the correct process of rebuilding that nose piece too. But that skin was blasted on the side there, and the only corrosion we found was right, if you look at that small like green oval piece, there's a hole. That was the only corrosion we found. It had actually blasted a hole through when we were blasting it.
Okay.
That's on the aft right. You can see the blister in the top left. You see more of the green in front right, but the door is right actually at the same level the yellow scaffolding. But that green section and all the other spots that are green are replaced skins. The wheel well, actually in this picture, is pretty much cleaned out for us. We were trying to get it prepped and for more research and possibly NDT coming up on it.
Okay. One of our viewers asked, how do you assess the, as you mentioned, the nooks and crannies for corrosion in there as you're working?
Well, you kind of just have to go through the fine tooth comb. Like, it's going to just take time. It's no quick way about it. You kind of go through all the points where you blasted, find anything. And sometimes if you're blasting, you can make note of it, mark it, or yeah, just to kind of be aware of it. But yeah, a lot of times you blast it, clean everything up, and come back and look through it and figure out, okay, this looks good, this needs replacing, or whatever at that point. Yeah. It's a long process.
Yeah. It's a big airplane.
Flashlight.
Yeah, a lot of time here, flashlight, yeah. So this is actually the front. We're looking, this would be the front left. We're actually looking aft. The nose wheel well is actually that you can see kind of the torque tube and the arm kind of sticking out. Mm-hmm. This is all the blasted area that they were doing in the outside. We didn't, I don't think, found too much, anything really on the skin too much down here. It's the other side, that's co-pilot side, and you see the nose still in the process of trying to reconstruct. We have a few parts that we're going to have to remanufacture because it's just too far gone, partly for the flip. But the blasting part here, it was kind of glad we did this because most of it actually came out really clean. There's not really too many problems here and there. There is some, but nothing, much less than we initially anticipated.
Well, speaking of the bead blasting and everything that you did, you guys have a great time-lapse video kind of showing the work that went into it. So in like a little over 2 minutes, we get to see progress on the airplane. So if it's okay with you, let's take a look at it.
You can see the sheer amount of clecos in it.
And the crews that we brought in at kind of these big work tasks to try to make sure we had enough people to get everything in place and kind of give some people some breaks every once in a while.
Yeah, this would be the second weekend that we did, so you can see we're already moving on the other side of the canopy here.
Yeah, we got a little
bump the camera.
You can see the picture. The plane's pretty big. We're like leaning over to get into it. It's the scaffolding tied off to the side, so we're going to kind of leaning into it. Bump the camera again. Yeah, it's a lot of prep to go in just to shoot it.
Yeah, probably more work to get it all set up before we started.
Yeah.
A lot more work.
Shooting it probably is like 10% of the actual all the work. It's like you have to take the old sheet off, match it to a new sheet, and then paint it, primer it, all that stuff, and actually pretty much I think just primer on this, and putting it back together. And then some of these sheets I have a BHAF or a sealant in between to keep corrosion in, also make it more waterproof in there. So we actually, as soon as we started shooting, there is a time period where it's like, okay, we need to keep going, we can't stop.
And then making sure the layers overlap in the right order, and especially around as we move forward into those windows. There's a lot of layers sandwiched in there to make sure everything's in the correct spot.
Yeah, the crown, as you see, they're working right now, has a bunch of holes. A lot of them actually weren't behaving, so it took us a little bit to figure out what was going on.
Well, it's quite, someone just typed in and says, dang, you guys work fast. Which you do.
If only, that'd be great.
Yeah. Oh, so that's, one of the major projects that you've had this year, but one of the other ones, and this is something that goes back, I guess, 2 years ago in 12 Planes of Christmas, and that was getting some work done on the landing gear.
Yeah, it took a little bit. They had parts they had to get. They had manufacturing parts. We had a bunch of spares that we thought were good, and just the whole process kind of dragged out in the sense that we had parts that we thought were good, they weren't, and they were repairable but not usable. And it just started going through all the stuff, and it ended up just taking more time than we thought it would to actually come together. But this is Air Corps out of Bemidji up in Minnesota here that did all this work, got a contracted. Brian can fill in.
So this is back, I believe, in February, roughly, at Air Corps. They had the gear. They're running through the different gear, checking it all out and testing it. So this is kind of the state it was at their facility back in April. And then the next slide, I think, moves ahead to May. So here they're doing some assembly work on the gear. After this point, I believe they put it up and test stands and did some test runs and things with it. And then I think the other one is, next photo is very similar, just more of it to get it more complete. So kind of see the progression of the work that they did over at Air Corps. As Eben said, it was quite a bit more extensive restoration work than we had planned. So budget-wise, it was quite a significant over what we had originally estimated. Like we had spare, like you said, we had a number of like 8 and some spare parts that all of them could be repaired, but the cost of buying a replacement was cheaper than the repair work needed to get it up to spec. Yeah. So there's a lot of challenges with the gear. The original estimate was based on the gear being pretty serviceable, and it wasn't quite in as good a state as we hoped. So unfortunately, that was well over our planned budget for that restoration work.
Are you still raising money to try to pay off that bill? Yeah.
So we do need to do. So right now we're in the middle of looking at different grants and foundations and other ways to raise money to kind of recoup some of those costs. So the gear is paid for, but we have additional work that we need to do that we need to raise the funds so we can keep moving forward on the project.
This picture it's crated out, it's finished, painted, and everything. We actually have it here.
Yeah, it looks just beautiful when you look at it. I don't know, this picture doesn't seem to do it justice, but it looks really awesome. Yeah. Just pristine looking landing gear. So we have this stored inside right now until we get ready to mount that.
Yeah, to keep the corrosion down and anything, we have it in a climate controlled area. These kind of in the back picture here, you can see the rims too. We actually had 2 rims that were okay shape, but we actually ended up finding 2 new old rims in a sense. They were much better shape, but they are all primered up and painted and ready to use. That's one of the funds we're looking for, is getting the tires put on them so we can actually get the plane mobile again.
Yeah.
Because right now it's sitting on jacks and saddles to keep it in place. And as soon as we get on wheels, we can actually take it out, clean her completely clean, because we can take her out of the hangar.
Yeah.
And that's one of the brakes. It doesn't, you can't really see it too well there, but if you pick that up, and actually I could probably go grab it, but there it has a bunch of discs going through it, and actually I'm gonna go grab it. So give me 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, so those we got both brakes done. So this is one of them. I think there's a picture of the other. It looks pretty much the same. But Evan will show a little example of what they look like here in a bit. It's just in the room next door here. But those came back, same quality of work. I was very, very, very excited to see this stuff back. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So this is the brake that you can see from the side. So a bunch of plates, and it doesn't do its justice from looking at the top, but yeah, this is all the braking power per each wheel. Plus there's a few other assembly parts, but yeah, this is needed to be rebuilt. We had one that was, again, okay, but we had a few of them, new old stock replacements. So.
Yeah. Well, the best part about this picture is it's serviceable. So.
Yeah, certified and everything. It's probably the best landing gear. I'd be willing to bet the best landing gear in any PBY anywhere. So.
It's also a certified, supposedly one of the few certified landing gears, because so much of it's brand new.
Yeah. So it's going to be rock solid gear. So that's very exciting for us.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's all the photos we have, but I mentioned at the outset that this is one of the projects that people are very interested in. And a lot of times during these sessions, a few questions come in here and there, but it's been almost a nonstop scroll of questions, some of which we've been able to get into during the presentation. But I'm just going to roll things back here. We've got some questions and then some commentary. So we'll see here. Oh, and when we were talking about who produced the PBY's Canadian Vickers in Canada and Royal Coastal Command, RCAF, Search and Rescue, and Convoy Escorts. John Park mentioned that for us. Okay, Mark says it's nice to see the rebuild of a PBY. I crewed 3 different PBY land-sea conversions during the 4-engine Innovator. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. He was able to get a flight recently on the Soaring by the Sea Foundation PBY in Eugene, Oregon. Too bad I live in Irvine, California. Go ahead.
Sorry, they're one of the ones that helped us with parts on the gear. So.
Yeah. Very nice. Mark says, too bad I live in Irvine, California. I'd love to help you guys in the restoration.
Hey, come on up anytime. It's nice in the summer.
That's true. It is.
Honest, no snow.
No snow in the summer.
No, Henry's wondering. No, if there are flights in the Black Cat, but that airplane is not restored to airworthy condition, and I don't believe you have a plan to do that.
The cockpit is all complete, so we do allow tours of it. So it is, kind of a really cool experience to be able to crawl up in there and sit down and move the yoke back and forth and flip a few switches and kind of get that feel for what it was like to fly it.
Yeah, we have a lot of people come to the museum, and that draws a lot of people in as well. Sure. People see that plane out there and wonder what's going on. But it's a nice display, teaching tool we have students that come in every year too, that we give a tour and kind of show them a little bit about the plane.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it as a full static. We're slowly trying to get the trailing edges put on it from the move. We've got the main wing on, a lot of the main pieces, but yeah, there's still things to go on. Or eventually kind of want to get the engines on and stuff, just kind of make it more real of a plane for now, and also gives us more room in the hangar. But we also are going to eventually have it as a project. Okay. Hopefully at some point. It's just, it's a huge plane, so it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
A little more trivia. The PBY called it Canso in Canada after the Straits of Canso, or because it could take off and land on water or land. So there it is. Trivia.
I think there was another place, U.S. place, Naval Air Station, I think if I remember correctly, that made PBN-1s that called Nomads. They're kind of in between a 5A and a 6A, or 5 and a 6A probably, because I don't think they had gear.
And actually, when it comes to our Black Cat, because one of the last times it actually went under a conversion was in Canada, on the side of it, right as you enter the aircraft, it says, I believe it says PBY 6A Canso as well.
Okay.
With the, I think it was in the 60s, they have it marked when they actually did the conversion.
Parker is asking, well, first of all, thank you for doing this important work and helping bring history back to life. About what percent is the PBY complete? And that may be hard to judge, but
it's a point right now, like we're coming to the point where we can start putting stuff back in the planes. So it's I would say, at a really rough guess, it's probably 15%, 20% at most. But we have a lot of parts that need to go back into the plane. As I commented earlier, it's literally skin and structure right now, and really anything else is left in the plane. So it's kind of gives you a kind of a where we're at. Like we just do a bit more blasting and then coating with a paint or a primer, and then reassembly, and yeah. I would say 15, 20 unless
everything else is easy compared to the structure and the paint.
Yeah.
And like Evan said, it's that's the big things. And I've been a member for about 2.5 years, and so when I first joined, it was a lot of things coming off the plane.
Right.
And then now in the last year, it's been really nice to be part of the crew putting things back onto the plane and seeing that progress.
Yeah.
Very good. Sean calls it a bag house, and you built that yourself. That's self-designed, self-built.
Yeah, it's we have a few ex-contractors and stuff that help us put together the structure. We
did a few versions too.
Yeah, and this is our 4th version. It's by far the nicest. In fact, we called it. We had a few names for like Taj Mahal, and a few other things because it's by far the nicest tent we've built. But it does a great job, and like you said, right now it's primarily keeping the media in, so the rest of the hangar isn't quite as bad for cleaning. But it's been much nicer working areas with that tent up throughout the winter.
Do you have that set up with a negative pressure blower, or just the furnace motor and the filters?
It was negative pretty much, because I have the blower shooting straight out of the tent, so it's taking fresh air from the tent. Is not perfect, so there's holes throughout. So we have one area that's sucking in by the front, and then the back fans in the back, so it's pulling more of a negative. But yeah, prior to that, it was just a fan circulating through a filter, so it was not really a positive or a negative. It was just a filter taking that stuff out. And that's how we started storing fans.
Yeah.
So it's by far a lot better than the first shelter we built.
Yeah.
That was just thick plastic and PVC tubing.
Yeah, with ropes holding it.
Hung by the ceiling.
Yeah.
That was our first try at it.
Got the heat in.
Got the heat in, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Mark was the one who asked about stripping, using paint stripper instead of media, and he followed up. He said he was stripping the top wing and started to slide off the trailing edge. Barely clawed myself to a stop and had to yell for help. A lot of reasons to look for other ways to remove the paint. But he said they found. Okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say I do not envy having to do that job.
It's kind of like on a large scale with paint stripper. You have to mop it on and then run away and wait half a day and then spray it with a garden hose.
Yeah. Like you see airlines, some videos of time lapse, the airlines being paint stripped. They apply it and just sits there and you see just slider it off. You can't really get close to it, as you said. It becomes a hazard of slipping all over the place. Yeah. Like we did have some small parts, but the big part of the plane, we deemed it being a little too unsafe.
Mark also says, he said they found the original Navy paint under a few layers. Have you found anything interesting as you've removed the paint?
Bright orange.
Right behind the co-pilot side blister, I believe, are the original serial numbers that they painted on the tail. I still have a little bit more paint to take off to uncover the rest of the numbers, but it's like an imprint of decal. So
when it comes to the actual paint, so underneath our previous layer we had on there, we found that the plane was orange in a lot of spots from back when it was a fire bomber, and then beneath that it was just the oxide coating, the red coating that was underneath there?
It was the same iron oxide primer that they would put on like tanks and jeeps and trucks and stuff. So it's like everything Army Air Corps it all used the same kind of paint and primer.
Yeah, and then on the inside there, we found there's about, 6 layers of green paint depending on where you are in the plane. And another spot it's still the original paint. So depending, it's just, and it's panel to panel, we found. Like sometimes the one is just caked in paint. The next one, oh yeah, completely fine, go to the next one, it's 4 layers of paint or, some mixture of the two.
Yeah.
If only that airplane could talk, right?
Yeah.
Here's now we're getting into a little more, I guess, a little technical. The Achilles heel of the PBY has been the nose door locking mechanism. Have you considered any safety modifications to ensure the nose wheel door locks are fully engaged, or is that still something down the road?
Still something down the road. We have to review it. As commented earlier, we originally just trying to do a bunch of things at once, then we broke it down. So we have that to look at. We also have to look at the mains. There's also sometimes the mains don't lock all the way down, and that's why this small window you have to push out with a stick. So it's kind of, we're going to review the problems areas when we get to them and try to see what we can do to improve it. Because we're planning is right now, to my knowledge, I'm going to review this again, but it's going to probably be in the experimental category for an aircraft.
Okay.
So it's going to allow us to get a little more freedom on some things, but mainly it's going to be rebuilt as what the manual is. But yeah, we're going to review of safety, anything possibly safety related stuff. We're going to be reviewed again.
All right. Let's see. Here's another question. We talked about the restoration being 15 to 20%. Do you think you'll be flying in 5 years, or maybe a little further out than that?
Well, that's a possibility. We have a crew and people that are going to be able to do a lot of sheet metal work and just get it back together and people have time. 5 years is possible, but it's probably realistically 8 to 10 years at a guess. Because if we ran across landing gear, it's a problem. Like we expected that to be done in a year, and it ended up being almost 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like we're hoping to not run into that problems, but if everything goes great, I would say we could be probably 8 is a good guess.
Okay.
But it could be earlier, it could be later.
Okay. A lot of the refurbs on the PBY have taken the flight engineer's gear out of the pylon and incorporated that in the cockpit. Are you keeping instruments in the pylon?
We're still deciding on that. I kind of want to do a clone of it, so it basically they both be indicating, but we won't have somebody up there. Like we would have somebody who could sit there and watch, but they won't actually be controlling it via the pilots up front, doing all the monitoring and stuff, unless we deem otherwise. But I kind of want to have at least operating so people can see. And I don't think that'd be too hard to implement. But it's another problem we're going to review when we get to it. But we're going to at least have static ones there. Operating, non-operating, still a decision.
Well, and as you mentioned earlier, you want to bring it back to the way it was when it came out of the factory in 1945.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So, but again, like the question about the nose door lock, there are some, not necessarily a compromise, but maybe an update that are safety reasons, and moving those instruments to the cockpit makes sense, but I like your idea of also keeping them in their original position where people can see them as they were.
Yep. Well, that's our main goal. Like if there's any safety related stuff that we know has a problem, or there was like an STC or somebody's done something in the past and found that this is a problem, we're going to have to review it and do the best course of action on it. But we're going to try to keep it as original as possible otherwise.
Do you have any idea, going back to the original history of the PBY, why the flight engineer station was where it was and not further up near the cockpit?
What I recall, and I might be a little off on this, what I do recall is that was one of the first planes that actually had a flight engineer station. They were kind of figuring out where to put it at that point in time. So they thought the visibility, being in the middle of 2 engines, look right out those windows and see the state of them, was a great idea. And then
there's another thing about the pylon, the 2 windows on the side, they actually slide down, so you can have an unobstructed view of both engines. Yeah.
So I think they were thinking that was kind of the designer's decision back then. And then, as of course everything evolved, it moved up towards the cockpit area. So I believe that's my understanding of it.
It's a really good place to be to see if the engines start on fire.
Yeah.
But it's a bad place to be if you have to tell the pilot, hey, the engines are on fire.
Yeah.
And it is actually a great spot. We have a few members that have ridden in the Black Cat before it was grounded, and they love that spot for sitting. You can just look out the window, and it's a nice spot to have a ride. So.
Yeah. There you go. Maybe a flight engineer designed the airplane.
Could be. Best ride spot in the house.
Any thoughts of making this saltwater worthy, or just gonna be freshwater?
That's still a toss-up in many situations. Some people might be aware that the CAF actually had a couple of PBYs in the past, and we sadly lost them in different accidents in the water. There's been talk of not touching the water, and there's talk about any touch water. Salt water is really kind of hard on the plane in general. Like if you get a plane in salt water, it has to be immediately washed almost afterwards. On top of the PBY, we're looking into it too. The bearings and the wheels would have to be taken out, repacked, to make sure that's all set. So a lot of people are leaning towards more keeping the land, but we're not ruling out the fact that it might touch the water at some point, but it might require different rules for the pilots. We don't have any kind of things happen like what happened in the past. Right. But that's still in a major discussion. Like it's not unanswered. But it's right now a lot of people are saying for sure it's going to fly, for sure it's going to land on land. Water is getting there.
Kind of like the whole project, one step at a time.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And Sean said you can all let your children and grandchildren paint the details on it when it's ready to be airworthy. You should sign them up now. Good advice, Sean. And I think we have gone through all of the questions. Hopefully I got them all, so I'm trying to jump back and forth here, but we are just about at time anyway. So any final thoughts, especially how folks can be involved, how they can join the wing and support that way, donations, keep track of your progress? What's the best way to keep in touch with you?
Yeah, on our website or just by emailing us, you can join our mailing list. We try to get it's usually every 2 months or so. We try to get plane updates with what work has gone on in the last couple months and what's going on at the hangar, other types of events, get that out to people. We'll be participating in 12 planes in one form or the other this year. So we have another project that we have planned, and that'll be a way to help support some of these things that are coming up for the next steps of the project. In addition, if we're always looking for new members. We're a smaller unit with a big project, so we always like to if you're interested in the area and want to come up and help, you can join the CF, join the Lake Superior Squadron. We definitely can find a spot for you to help us out and help move these projects along.
I guess I'll throw on the side here. We also do have a YouTube channel. We don't post super frequently. It's when we have the time and when we have stuff to give people. But we do have videos on there, and we do actually upload from time to time on there as well. If you guys kind of want to see us physically doing something instead of being like, with our mailing list, like, we'll give you everything we've done and a little bit of extra, but you actually watch us do it from the YouTube channel.
Excellent.
Yeah. We're trying to keep it updated, but it's we're focused on the plane and not all the time to be able to get that picture out, the video out. So we're trying the best.
Only so many hours in the day, that's for sure.
Yep, exactly.
All right, well, thank you. Go ahead.
Saturdays, so.
Yep, you're here every Saturday. Plus, if you just want to come out, if you're in the Duluth Superior area, hangar's open every Saturday. Give tours. We love to see people here. That's what fuels us to having people come visit. So,
or send us a message, and oftentimes a lot of us are happy to come down, even anytime during the week or on other kind of off hours when we're not typically here, and happy to give a tour as well.
Most definitely.
Sounds good. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight, and from Superior, Wisconsin, and for those of you in the audience, thanks for your participation and all the great questions and comments tonight. It was another fun one. We'd love to hear your thoughts on tonight's episode, or if you have ideas for future topics, just drop us a line at media@cafhq.org. Again, if you like what you saw tonight, please share it across your social media platforms, and remember to subscribe and click the bell icon on YouTube. You'll get notifications when our new episodes of Warbird Tube are posted. So until next time, I'm Steve Bose, wishing you blue skies and tailwinds. Have a great night.